Welcome to season 14 of the Parenting Aces podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Stone, and this week we have with us Sam Parfitt, who is the CEO of the True Athlete Project. Sam is a former top junior tennis player from the UK who came to the US to play college tennis, and he played at University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, where he went on to be an assistant coach at the women's team after some injuries and some other issues that you will hear more about in the podcast. But during that time, Sam recognized that something was terribly missing from youth sports, and he started doing a little research, started attending some conferences, some talks, and recognized that he had the ability and the desire and the need to do more to help our young athletes get as much as they could out of their respective sport. Coming from tennis, which is an individual sport, I think the light was shining that much brighter on the tennis players that could use the assistance of what Sam had in mind. So he went to work and he created what we now know as the True Athlete Project. So I'm excited to have him on and to have him share TAP with you guys so you can learn more about it and how you can get involved, but also just to see one more journey and see where tennis can take your young players as they go through this development process and decide what they want to do in their adult lives. So I'm excited for y'all to hear from Sam, but before I bring him on, just a quick reminder, if you haven't already, I hope you will go and follow us on all our social media. We have Facebook groups, we have Instagram, we have TikTok, we have Blue Sky, we're on Threads, we're on LinkedIn. So please find us, click the follow button, and support Parenting Aces that way. Also, if you are in the midst of your own junior tennis journey and need a little help, I am here for you. I do offer one-to-one consults that you can book and handle through our website. So if you just go to parentingaces.com, click on the shop tab, and you will see the various options there. While you're in the shop, why not pick up some of our cool merch and help support Parenting Aces when you're out and about in the junior tennis world. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with Sam Parfitt. Sam Parfitt, welcome to the podcast. It's so nice to meet you.
Thank you, Lisa. Lovely to meet you. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. I've been hearing about you for several months now from a shared acquaintance, Charles Allen from Intense, and one of his players over the summer, Annabelle Thomas, is intimately involved with the True Athlete Project, and that was kind of our first introduction to each other, and I'm so happy that we were able to make this happen, even with a big country and a big ocean separating us. So gotta love Zoom.
We made it work. We got there.
We did. So I'm going to start by asking you just to give our audience a little bit of your backstory in tennis, because you are a former junior and college tennis player, and I would love for our audience just to get to know a little bit about you and how you got started in the game.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Yeah, I work with so many sports now that it's really nice to just kind of reflect on the tennis part of me. Yeah, so my dad was a coach. So grew up playing, just endlessly hitting the ball against the back garden wall and just loving it. So the story goes, my first word was Agassi before mum or dad, Agassi. So yeah, grew up playing. My parents were separated, so my time with my dad, he would come to the house and that's when we would play, and so it was a real special thing. Tennis was kind of our thing. And started playing tournaments not super young, really. I was a little bit kind of behind, and then worked really hard as a teenager. Really enjoyed kind of it being my main thing, and I think it helped me to be a more confident teenager than I probably would have been. And then sort of had a choice at about age 15, 16, whether to stay at home or whether to move to London. So I moved to a full-time tennis academy in London and found it really difficult. there were some amazing opportunities, met great people and trained really hard, and loved some bits, but it was, most things you sort of look back on and you think, well, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I actually don't know if I would go back and do the same thing. It definitely left a few scars, I think. But it led to things that led to things that led to things which have been fantastic. So maybe it was good. But I struggled even as a
Can I interrupt you 1
Sure.
second? Because there are a lot of families that will be consuming this podcast who are considering sending their juniors to a full-time academy where they're boarding and they're away from home and away from mom and dad. What are some of the things that you wish you had known about that experience ahead of time that maybe would have led you to make a different decision when offered the choice?
Might have looked at a few more options than we did. Kind of looked at 2 different options. May have made the same decision because it was, there were lots of possibilities with it. I've reflected on that question about going to the States more than actually the London part, and the questions that I would encourage parents and athletes to ask when picking a college. I think really digging into kind of the coach and the philosophy, and not being afraid to ask quite direct questions. This person is going to have power over you. Unfortunately, like, that is often how it's set up. So yeah, I think there's quite a lot I've reflected on about that college step. I think with the academy, getting to know the main coaching staff, I think, is really key. There are some things that are quite unpredictable. Maybe it's just kind of open conversation, so that when you do get into that spot, you're communicating with your parents about how it's going. You've got a good line of communication with the coaches. They know who you are. They know that you're that you want to be working hard and get the best from it. I think so long as you kind of build the support team around you. The danger comes when a young person doesn't feel like they can share. So I don't know if there'd be anything like leading up particularly to the decision of going that I would change, but I think encouraging kind of honesty and knowing what's okay and what's not. Like, what is the where's the line in terms of well-being, suffering? Because really, when you're an athlete, it all goes completely hand in hand. So when you are happy, you're going to be healthier and higher performing, obviously. So I think really being on the lookout for where things could be damaging your well-being.
Yeah, I think that's crucial, and it's a subject that we discuss quite often on this podcast as well, is good communication, parents checking in regularly with their player, starting at a young age, so that players learn the language of communicating feelings and mental state and physical pain and all of the things, right? Kids have to learn the language before they can use it effectively, and that should start young. So I promise I didn't coach Sam on this answer, but I'm happy to hear you talk about communication as being such a key factor in all of this. And I hope parents that are considering this option for their kids will really take that to heart. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your story, but I do think that this is an important piece of your journey and what led you to found the True Athlete Project.
Yeah, no, it's a really good one to reflect on. I think that open communication piece can be quite difficult. It's probably underrated, and I think parents don't maybe they don't often want to hear the negative. Like, the negative's good, like bring the light, bring the shade, all good. When I say about certain things in my high school experience that weren't great, my mum will say, "Oh, you had a good experience at high school." Well, I'm telling you what my experience was right now, actually. Like, it was a good experience. Like, I think, there's a natural defense mechanism that kicks in, which is understandable.
Yeah, for sure. We want to protect our children, and we want to think that we provided the best opportunities that were out there for them, and that they learn from that and gain from that, right? And but it's not a reflection on us or our parenting if something negative went down in the process. It's just what happened. It just is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was speaking to she's the four-time kickboxing world champion, and she's got this amazingly healthy view of sport and being an athlete. And I was asking her about how her parents were, and the big takeaway for her was that her mum trusted her so much that, like, just rather than trying to get kind of the sort of helicopter parent, lawnmower parent, I think it was a real like trust, which which feels like a really important thing. Imagine, really, I'm not a parent. I imagine that's really difficult.
Yes, it is very difficult because we are the older one. We are the one with the more life experience,
Mm.
and we don't often understand the depth of what our children are feeling, and the need to let them own that, and that they are not just an extension of us. They are their own people with their own experiences and their own emotions and all those things. So yes, I think trust is important and oh so difficult to let
Yeah,
go.
sure.
So so let's finish your backstory. So you move to London, you go to an academy, and at what point did you decide that college tennis was the right path for you?
Yeah, I don't remember it being a decision. It just felt so obvious and like this natural kind of flow as a next step. And had seen, I think I'd probably, like, as a kid in England, looking at pictures of big stadiums and all the kind of razzmatazz around it that we don't have, that just looked really appealing, and started. I didn't work with an agency to find, so I was just doing it myself, emailing different coaches and sending off videos, um, and got a few different offers, and had a nice conversation with the coach. Didn't know that there was some other stuff in the background that was quite difficult. As a, what questions do you ask as a kid trying to figure out this next step? Quite difficult. But yeah, settled on University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, which is a fantastic city. Everyone was welcoming, amazing, like Southern hospitality, and had some really great experiences, but also some negative ones. So had basically 4 years in and out of hospital, very lots and lots of surgeries, poor physical health, poor mental health that followed, several bouts of pretty severe like suicide ideation, and
Whoa.
just left, really, ugly at times. So left sport at the end of those 4 years, just really very conscious of the paradox of sport. Like, how does that kid playing tennis against the wall, loving it, joyful, free, how does that end in such a kind of cold, harmful, more destructive place? And I was seeing that for me, friends at other colleges, elite athletes in the media, my sister's experience of PE, most people's experience of PE in high school can be, maybe it's different in the US. In the UK, it's not good. I was doing a lot of work with at-risk Hispanic immigrant youth with soccer, and even that experience, which was literally designed to be a sort of escape from the things that they were experiencing, was just stolen by kind of very old school ways of coaching and parenting on the sidelines. And so everywhere was like this phenomenal thing that we have, sport, missing its opportunity to do wonderful things, and then people not seeming to want to change it. Just seems so obvious, like the societal impact of that much sport being done like it is enormous. So yeah, that was kind of all of that was sort of bubbling up in me. So that started the sort of journey of beginning the Triathlete Project.
And so you wound up, I read on your website that you wound up at a conference or a convention, and that really kind of lit the fire under you to take some action. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. So right out of college, I got a job as a director of athletics at a little school in Tennessee, and they didn't have a PE program, so I could just design something from scratch, which tried to kind of shift perceptions of what it means to be a young athlete. So away from just the win-loss column, who we are, how do we grow through sport, how does everything we learn through sport affect people around us? So we introduced parkour and meditation and sports poetry and studying heroes like Muhammad Ali. Basically, we created a very inclusive, vibrant PE program where the least sporty kid felt just as included and just as likely to find their thing. And that got picked up by the Muhammad Ali Center. So I went to present the curriculum at this forum, Athlete and Social Change Forum. And it was a very inspirational place. It was great. I was sort of seeing this role for me in sport beyond being a tennis player and a coach. But the big thing I noticed was that there was sort of sport for social change initiatives over here, performance sport initiatives over here, massive gulf in between. And the only sort of bridge connecting those worlds is like an elite athlete goes to a school and gives a talk for half an hour, or they're on a billboard campaign, really limited impact. So the question I had was, okay, how do you kind of unite these worlds? How do you actually design athlete development programs that can improve performance, nurture well-being, and cultivate a more compassionate society? How do you do that all in one? So literally the act of becoming a better athlete is holistic, socially conscious. So that's quite a big question to try and ask. And then how do you do it in a way that's fun and exciting for athletes and coaches and makes sense? And so, instead of it being like you do your training, you go to a mental health workshop every month, when you retire, you start being interested in other things. How do we transform that? So that's what being a true athlete is all about, kind of bringing all of that together.
I love that. And, I think it's really important to keep in mind that, yes, we are in the junior tennis world trying to develop tennis players and athletes, and at the same time, productive humans out in the world, right? And again, this is a common topic of conversation on this podcast that, they are competitive tennis players for this many years, and then maybe they go to college and they continue their competition as athletes. And then for the majority, the huge majority, they go out into the world and do something else and need to find something that is productive from a financial standpoint, productive from an emotional standpoint, productive from a worldview standpoint. And that's the challenge, right? And this is what kind of caught my eye about the True Athlete Project, was that you are proactively training junior athletes across many sports to find that passion and to have that self-awareness at an early age to allow for these possibilities as they move out into the world as adults.
Yeah. And I think it's really important that it's not explained to kids as you have to have a plan B, because that's not going to excite any young athlete who wants their plan A to be plan A and only plan A. So I was chatting to an English football player earlier, and we were talking about it, and my dad did a really good job with that. I sort of realized maybe what he was doing now, but he would say, well, even Churchill painted brilliant paintings through the war while he was being this important figure leading a country into World War II. He was also writing and painting, and those other things were helping him to be a good leader. Like, you have to have these other things. So there's a performance-related benefit to having more strings to your bow, and to not. So, if I go into a match and my entire view of myself is dependent on whether I win or lose that match, of course I'm going to be nervous. Like, why wouldn't you be nervous? So if you can, sort of think better of yourself than you're just this one thing determined by your results. You're a friend, you're a son, you're interested in that subject, you're whatever you are in the world. So that's a big part of it. It's kind of we do that in our mentoring program. So young athletes go through topics around kind of athlete identity, understanding their values, really being able to look at the things that you can be proud of, even if the result doesn't go your way, which can be really difficult, and that can be difficult for parents as well. Like, how do you keep praising the process, knowing that the process, those things that you're identifying are good for the long term, both as a long term in your tennis development and then into life, into lots of other realms. How do you keep praising those things rather than whether the ball, landed a few inches the other side of the line?
Right.
Like,
it's tough. It's tough to be the parent on the sideline, and it's tough to stay focused on the process as opposed to the outcomes. But we have to do it. That's our job.
Yeah.
We don't have a choice.
No, and I think it's very counterproductive to kind of critique because of the result, because you're only going to tense up even further. Like, actually, maybe really going for that forehand is exactly what you need to do, not maybe right in that moment for that match, but if attacking is the thing that you're trying to work on, because in 3 or 4 years time being an attacking player is going to give you a much better chance rather than moonballing, then it's fantastic that you missed that forehand by a few inches. That is awesome that you missed that forehand, because that means you went for it.
Exactly. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the True Athlete Project and what the mission is, first of all, and what the day-to-day work is of the project.
Yeah. So our mission is to build a more compassionate world through sport. So we see that sport has this great power to it. So often it lets people down, this sort of win at all cost culture that actually just means people have negative experiences or stop, and then maybe in a couple of decades time they pick up a racket again. So we've got a big range of programs. We work really at all levels. And we started just by experimenting. I built a team of sport and clinical psychologists, Olympians, Paralympians, professional athletes, researchers, coaches, meditation teachers, and we just started experimenting. We had a retreat in Costa Rica. We started a mentoring program, and it's grown and grown with no seed funding. We've just been this organic kind of bottom up. Athletes have resonated with it, hundreds and hundreds of world-class athletes. So one thing we do is mentoring programs. So we match young athletes with professional and elite senior athletes, usually in a different sport from their own. So there's not a conflict kind of between coach and mentor. It's the wider holistic stuff that goes into being an athlete. And that comes with different workshops, and mentor and mentee can talk about any topic, sport, life, whatever. It's incredible to see where those stories go and where those journeys go. We are now seeing mentees on that program become mentors to others. So that's really special. We provide scholarships because the young people on that program do fundraisers for the future year mentees scholarships. It's just this like lovely community that's built. We are embedded in some schools. So we will send one of our practitioners into a high school, and they'll work with different coaches, with athletes, with leadership, developing a vision for the school athletic program. So that's another piece of it. We
strictly in the UK, or are you
no,
outside
US
the UK?
actually? Yeah, US for schools work. It's more in the US for schools and teams. Yeah. In the UK, it's more kind of national governing body focused because everything's quite centralized. So we'll go to British gymnastics or British cycling, and we'll be at a training camp, or we'll help develop the coaches in a fairly centralized way. But yeah, we sort of have two separate strategies, sort of US international and then UK. We work with some college teams. We have athlete for social change training program. So this is where athletes will come on, learn how to kind of use their growth, their platform that they have to make a difference in their community and society. Again, really very special. We've got a youth version of that called Courageous Captains, which is where young athletes who have a sort of disproportionately high influence on the culture in their school, how do you help them use that for good? Actually, they've got a power even as a high school aged athlete. So how do you, even at that age, sort of start to develop compassionate leadership? I think American kids find that more natural than British kids. I remember being in the elevator with the quarterback at my college when I was there, and he like shook my hand and started talking to me, and I was like, that's really weird that I'm the same age as this guy. This guy's like a leader already. I think Americans are taught some of that a bit quicker than we are.
Well, I think it shows up in our media maybe a lot more than in your media. And I mean, I don't know, because I've only lived in the UK for a short time, and it was a very long time ago when I was in college. But I do think athletes in the States have a lot of clout. They tend to build large platforms from a young age if they're successful in their sport. And I think it's really encouraging to see the ones who use that platform, as you're saying, to foster social change, to support at-risk communities wherever they are. And you know, one of the biggest reasons that I love Coco Gauff, and I'm such a fan of hers, is that she is one who, from a very young age, has used her platform to speak her mind and to encourage others to stand up as well, and you know, build an army, and I'm putting that in quotes, an army of people that are interested in effecting change within either their small local community or on a national or global scale.
Yeah, I definitely see in US schools sort of keywords, you know, on their value statement or whatever, like serve, lead, much more. I think in the UK it's like don't boast and be quiet in public. There's probably some strength to it in some places, but yeah, it's different.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And so the golden thread that runs through all of our programs is mindfulness-based practices. So we integrate mindfulness and sport. That's really been our kind of thing that's made us really unique, and that the athletes love. So mindfulness, because it has the ability to improve performance by helping us regulate our emotion and regulate our attention and forgive ourselves after the net cord or the bad line call or whatever, start again, relax our body, be focused. So there's the performance related benefits of mindfulness. There's the kind of well-being related benefits of immune system function and sleep and reducing kind of reactivity to long-term stress. And so there's big well-being piece. And then there is this wider piece, like what's the culture you want to create where people can be vulnerable with each other and where you can learn how your actions impact others, whether that's a family member, a teammate, your community, bigger. So that's why mindfulness is kind of right at the heart of everything we do. And it's really fun. I'll be working with England boxing tomorrow, so the Britain's best boxers, and the athletes get it straight away. We often get people sort of almost worried, like, oh, what are they going to think? Are you sure? Like, you'll need to really explain it in a certain way. That you don't. It's just as soon as they do a practice, within some seconds, like they're having this physiological response to breathing in this certain way in this particular space that you create, whether it's sitting in a circle or walking together or whatever, with a coach who's doing it with them rather than standing barking directions at them. And suddenly it's like, oh, okay, a sporting space can feel like this. I can be the true me right here. I can be vulnerable, which means that then I can talk to my coach about really what's going on, because then I can actually do something about that thing rather than pretending everything's great. So it's a beautiful thing to see, and it can be very it can be very deep. It can be very kind of emotional work. And it shows, I think that the response that we get from athletes shows how important it is.
What kind of
Especially,
response are you getting from coaches and governing bodies? I get that the athletes would be open to this and, pretty quick to show buy-in, but I don't know how it is in the UK. In the US, youth sports is big business. I mean, big business. And like you said earlier, there's this mindset of, well, we're all making money, we're getting more and more kids involved. Why should we change anything? It seems to be working. So how do you convince a coach or a governing body that maybe the way you're doing things isn't the best way for the long-term well-being of the children that you're purporting to help?
Yeah. Well, I think the dropout rate shows that something isn't great. There are, you can come at it from quite a few different points of view. The NCAA had a study that showed that student athlete mental health outcomes were worse than a normal student population, despite the kind of physical benefits, mental health related benefits of being physically active. And then obviously you can point to kind of quite harrowing individual stories. There was a book about a runner who took her own life. There's a really sort of powerful quote in there, which something like, what do you do when toughness, grittiness can get you through the workouts, but can't get you through the rest of the day? Knowing the highs and lows of your mind, knowing the highs and lows of your body is easy, but knowing the highs and lows of your mind is much harder, which I think really speaks to this sort of toughness approach. It's kind of push through the limits of that. So actually, and when we work with the world's best athletes, they get it completely. The need for flexibility and softness and being able to know when to stop and to row back and to push, and much greater skill level than just this. I mean, that is like 101 is this sort of to realize that it's not just about like grit and toughness and that's it. Like there are many levels of skill above that. So there are lots of ways that we can sort of come at it. I think trying to change minds quickly isn't a good idea when we're talking to coaches and governing bodies. So ideally they would experience some practices themselves, or they'd hear from the athletes what's going on, or they'd maybe, sometimes I'll be in an environment and the coach will join in, which is great. Sometimes they kind of stand just outside what's happening and we'll sort of be watching. And, if they then see nice interactions happening and athletes doing well in the weeks that follow those sessions, then it can start to turn. It's not always easy. We've definitely had some resistance from coaches. Early on, I had a guy in Tennessee. I don't know about that breathing stuff. Yeah, I know breathing stuff. Yeah, it's hard. So yeah, governing bodies is an interesting one, because in the UK at least there's an expectation that governing bodies try to kind of move into this more holistic space. Sometimes that will be quite tick boxy, and they think that one workshop's going to do the trick, whereas it needs to be a whole commitment, long-term commitment. I mean, you can start
and that's the thing, isn't it, Sam? This isn't a one-off. This isn't you go to a weekend, thing in Costa Rica and now you've done it and you move on to the next new thing that's coming out. This is a shift in the way we do business as coaches, as parents, as athletes, as governing bodies. And it's not just take a weekend course or watch a webinar. It's shifting how we think about well-being, not just for the athletes, by the way, but we see burnout in coaches all the
yeah.
time.
Yeah.
We see burnout as parents. I mean, we get worn out from all of this.
Mm,
It's a lot
mm,
to guide a young player through this journey
yeah.
and to try and say the right thing and try and make your body language the right body language and all those things, right?
Yeah.
It's tough.
It's really tough. It's really tough. And you, as a coach, you're someone who cares. That's why you're a coach, and you probably love the sport and love helping people. And so that means that you're passionate, and that means you're affected by stuff that happens, and it's really difficult. Yeah, and there are some things you can do kind of in the moment to help, breathing practices or different ways of looking at something. But I think you're right. It's quite fundamental. It's like underneath it all, like how are we measuring success? What are the what are the indicators that we are doing really well? So if you've just won every match, but you never want to pick up a tennis racket again, and you've burnt a load of bridges in the process, and whatever, like, is that that doesn't sound like anything successful? The fact that you were really good at tennis and then had all those other things happen. So yeah, how do you define kind of success for yourself?
We had a little snafu there with dogs going berserk on my end.
You're fine. Yeah, well, I mean, if any of your, so one thing we're a bit stuck with is understanding the lay of the land in the US in terms of national governing bodies, sports, so sports federations. So I'd love to learn a bit more about how that works, because we've met with a few and suggested different programs that could be helpful, because we've met some really nice people who seem very aligned to our approach. And then well, maybe this reflects the sort of commercialism in the States, but the question they had was basically, how much do you want to pay us? How much do we want to pay them in order to be able to deliver something for their athletes? Which is not the way it works over here. So if any insight into how to navigate that space would be amazing, because we've got these fantastic programs, but really the governing bodies we've spoken to don't seem interested in kind of player care, thinking about sport in a more creative way.
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, youth sports is massive business here in the States, and the response you're getting from the governing bodies of how can we make more money from this
Yeah,
is
yeah,
is exactly, sadly, what I would have expected you to say.
okay.
I think it's a matter of finding that one person within the organization that understands the importance of athlete care and athlete well-being and developing the whole person, not just the football player, tennis player, boxer, runner. And I'm not sure all governing bodies have that person,
Yeah,
but my hope is by having you on this podcast and introducing you to our community of parents and coaches and leaders in the tennis world, that maybe that opens the door for these types of conversations with USTA, for example, or the ITF,
yeah,
where now maybe those decision makers will have a better understanding of why it's important to provide this type of resource to the athletes and the athletes' families, as well as the coaches, because without better coach education, we have no chance of changing the overall environment. And interestingly, and I'm fingers crossed, we have an upcoming podcast episode that I'll be recording. There is a new organization here in the US called USTA Coaching, which is under the umbrella of USTA, but it is an independent organization. and it is all about coaching education and certification. And so there might be an opportunity with them
Cool.
for you
Yeah.
to break into the tennis space. But yeah, I mean, I see that, across the board, and certain sports are more notorious about, kind of this old school hard line approach to athlete development, where looking at the emotional side, the mental side, is looked at as being soft and not producing the type of athlete that they want in order to be successful. So this mindset, it's like you said, it's not a one-off thing. It's not a quick change. It's something that's going to require dedication and perseverance, and much like becoming an elite athlete.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think the fact that you and the people that are working with you on True Athlete Project are former high performance athletes yourselves lends that much more credibility to the work you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, it is really helpful. It's even when we go into a grassroots setting, it's very helpful. I'm not sort of just a random meditating tennis player who thinks it's a good idea. There's a weight of athletes behind me as well. And yeah, we haven't spoken to the USTA, so that would be really cool. And the coach education piece is key, as you said, because I think we often get coaches come to us. So we have a community of coaches. People can be a member of our organization and get all sorts of workshops and resources and a international community. And coaches often come to us, I think, because they have a sense that this type of work is really, really important and want to understand more. But there's such a kind of normal status quo of how you run a session. This is what a warm-up looks like. This is what the next phase looks like. This is what a between sessions looks like. With what a competition looks like, that actually I think coaches like to see that we've committed in a really bold way to reimagining that, so they can sort of borrow a bit of our confidence in doing it. And it's definitely not easy, but we've definitely learned ways to do it effectively and to bring athletes and coaches in. And I think, again, you're right. It's like, how you sort of identify the key people. In my experience, it's much easier if someone is upfront about their resistance to this type of work, if they think it's soft or weak or whatever, because then you've got a starting point. And usually when you talk with someone and learn their background and they learn your background, then you're probably pretty close to each other. Maybe there's some like gap on the language that you want to use to describe focusing or resilience or whatever. You're not normally closer to someone than it seems at first. The harder people to work with are the ones who say, oh yeah, I really buy into what you're doing, and who don't really. They're sort of just trying to put a veil over it. So yeah, honesty is good. That's why we're the True Athlete Project instead of the Pretend Athlete Project. Just we can bring all of our stuff together and figure it out.
Yeah, I love it. So if people want to get involved with the True Athlete Project, either as athletes themselves, as parents who want to support their own athletes, as coaches, as governing bodies, or just as community members who want to see more positive youth athletic experiences, what's the best way for them to get involved?
Yeah, we have programs at all levels. So everyone can email me, sam.parfitt@thetrueathleteproject.org, which we can put in the notes, I guess.
Yep, absolutely.
Our Instagram is a good way to find out what we're doing. So the True Athlete Project on Instagram. Our website, thetrueathleteproject.org. We'd love to talk to anyone interested, even if it's just a chat. We have a program that's open for applications at the moment, which is our kind of flagship program, our global athlete mentoring program. So yeah, athletes sort of age 14 to 24 can be paired with a mentor who is a elite international athlete, often an Olympian, Paralympian, professional athlete. It's a really special year. We try to give some scholarship funding out as well to make it affordable, and so there's applications will be open for a little bit longer.
What are you looking for in your applicants?
Great question. So we don't separate people on standard. So we've had cohorts where there's a kid who's never heard of goal setting, and they're on the same cohort of mentees as a young person who's already won Paralympic gold medal, for example. So it's a really mixed cohort. So it's really more about a commitment to developing as an athlete, developing as a person through sport, wanting to work with a mentor. Often I used to do the interviews for the mentees, and I remember one interview where we had a great chat and we talked all about the mentoring program. And right at the end, I said, "Any questions for me?" And he said, "Yeah, what is a mentor?"
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So I don't know whether kids quite know the value of what that is. They'd be used to what a coach brings, I guess, but a mentor is a really specific sort of role that they can have in a young person's life. Someone who doesn't have sort of a vested interest in a particular direction. They're just there to support, be in their corner. So someone who's committed to that process, really, committed to developing as a young tennis player. And we like to it's important that they write the application. Sometimes you can tell when a parent writes the application form. So we do quite a good process. We have an interview process, and it's just amazing when we see kind of the results. Every single journey goes in this kind of beautiful direction that we often can't imagine at the beginning.
And there's a cost involved for participating in that program, hence the scholarship offers?
Yeah, so for the year it's $1,200. So that's all of the mentoring sessions with their mentor. It's all the workshops, the mindfulness classes, the community itself, the ongoing support. So there's quite a lot to the program. The mentor gets really well supported, so they have a lot of training. They have a mentor liaison and the supervisor, and so it's a very kind of robust, safe program that's been put together. So $1,200 is the full cost for a mentee, and then we work with families if scholarships are needed.
Awesome. And so for people that want to support you from a financial standpoint, they can go on your website and there's a place to click to.
Yes, there's a donate button, and they can also get in touch with me if they're interested in sponsoring a scholarship, for example. So businesses can name a scholarship for a young person in their area, for example. So it could be the whoever, W.H. Smith scholarship for a young person.
Love it. And in terms of an academy working with you guys, if let's say the head of tennis at an academy wants to reach out to the True Athlete Project, what are some of the benefits that you guys would bring to that academy?
Yeah, so we can work online and in person. So we have practitioners kind of all over the place. And it can range from workshops for coaches to 6 to 12-week sessions to year-long sessions. It's always very tailored. So we begin by talking with that academy, that club, of what are the dynamics present, what's your big vision, what are your needs, what are you seeing that's difficult, and then we kind of build a plan that's tailored to them. But it can take a range of forms. We have a 12-week session called In the Zone Resilience for Athletes, In the Zone Mindfulness for Athletes. So that's taking people right the way through kind of learning these practices in quite a sort of introductory way to then, okay, how do you integrate them into your tennis training and into competition and into the culture of the club and the academy. So lots of different ways. And we can form packages as well that involve some mentoring spaces, some workshops for coaching staff, sessions for athletes. So we can put some quite cool packages together as well that sort of strengthen one another.
So I'm going to just put a call out there to anybody that is working with one of the USTA sections here in the States. If you're a coach, if you're on staff, if you're a volunteer, that this would be a really cool thing for you to look into for your section to help your junior tennis players and their families have a better and longer lasting experience in our sport and really get as much out of junior tennis as possible. And so I'm hoping that those of you involved with a local section or with a local NJTL chapter, and Sam, I don't know if you're familiar with NJTL, it's the National Junior Tennis and Learning. It's kind of the not, well, USTA is a nonprofit, but it's the community grassroots piece of reaching out to young athletes or wannabe athletes to get them involved in our sport. So anybody involved with an NJTL chapter, this would be a really cool partnership to form and bring the True Athlete Project into your chapter and offer these skills to your young players. I think that especially now with all of the pressures that our kids are under, social media amplifies all of that. Having these stupid contraptions with us all the time amplifies that. We've got to do better at giving our youngest athletes the skills to manage all of these pressures. And as Sam, shared with us his own experience of feeling that mental pressure, that strife, that deep, I mean, sadness doesn't even do it justice, but that sense of helplessness and hopelessness, we've got to give kids the tools and the skills to deal with all of the things that life throws at them. And what better way than to invite the True Athlete Project into your organization, into your club, into your school. So Sam, I hope my audience takes this to heart and reaches out to you, and maybe you and I can continue this conversation offline and brainstorm some ways that we can really bring True Athlete Project into every tennis player's life in some way, shape, or form, whatever that looks like.
Thank you so much. That was lovely. Yeah, we'd be honored to. And yeah, I hope people get in touch. Our work is a real partnership when we're in there with you. It's not just like this thing being done to you. We know that coaches, parents have enormous passion and these strong relationships and all of these skills. Like, how can we kind of be in there with you, just trying to do this thing that is so worthwhile? Like you said, how do you get all the best stuff out of this potential of being a young tennis player? It can be like the greatest thing in the world. So it's we have a responsibility, I think, to help people experience all of the best bits.
Love it. Sam, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking time to come on the podcast to introduce our audience to the great work that you're doing. And I wish you all the success. Parenting Aces is here for it. We're in your corner. So please keep us posted on what we can continue to do to help you. And to my audience, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next time on Parenting Aces.